Okay, here I am in the morning light, trying to catch some in my back before work, but trying to finish up Power Grid for Sparks. I don't know if I'll manage to do it in the morning, but White made their choices to what they want to put forward, and actually it's nothing. First of all, they only have a buck, so there's nothing they could put forward. But the reason they're in that situation is they're planning on ending it this turn. Purchasing a new technology is not liable to do them much good. They might have gotten a slight production bonus, but it seemed better to push the population forward. Now the problem with it is, of course, they have to pay twice for those pieces. They have to pay the turn before when they expanded, and now they're going to have to pay after they produce their goods for those extra clan members that they bought. And that's true with everyone. The problem is you can't just hoard your money and buy them all at once because of that geometric progression on the price track. So anyway, White is done and they have passed, and now it's going to be Red's turn to pick something. And everyone's really in this position of, well, if White's going to win, gee, I have to be able to calculate out what I'm going to make, and there's a good chance I don't want to buy anything out there. We'll see. Well, that I don't want to buy anything attitude didn't quite work. Red looked at a couple of things and said, I can make money off a number of these cards. And that's the point. You know, can you make one turn income bonus off of them at this point? Well, for example, this 9-point field, whatever they're doing, they're getting rid of a 1-point card, so they're going to get an 8-point bonus for $4. They make a bonus of $4. Simple enough decision there. You do want it, and as soon as they put it up, everyone started looking. Blue bought the field. They had first option. Black said, oh, that fishing rod is worth it. It's not worth a lot for me. It's worth $5 because I had to discard a card, which I got rid of, which was already producing 4. But I still gain a buck by picking that up. So, you know, what the hell, right? And there's no food wastage. Okay. Red finally got away with the bow. Green looked at it and said, well, I could buy that, and it's worth, 9. But what do I have to give up? I have to give up 9, 8. It's not worth the money for me. So for Green, they've got good enough cards they do not want to buy, and they have fire, so they're not going to lose any of their food anyway. So Red was able to replace their herbs with that. That puts us on yellow and green. And there's one thing out there that doesn't really affect production. It's hard to tell how much it's worth at this point. Earlier in the game, intelligence allows you to switch places with someone. It could be worth a lot. At this point, though, what are you really gaining? You might get some additional food. There's definitely that. And you might just save those $3 with your expansion. But chances are you probably won't on that. So it's kind of the, am I worried about my food supply with the next person? Red looked at this and said, oh, yellow's the guy with all the fields. I don't care about my food supply, so I think it's really unlikely. But somebody else might want it. And I'm an idiot. I forgot to deal out those other cards. The hell with it. I'm leaving things as they are. I don't feel like trying to correct that and go back through the bidding. People should say, we didn't have that option. If it was a real game, no problem not fixing it. In a solo game, it's very easy for me to forget things, so I often do go back and fix things that I wouldn't in a regular game. But in this case, I don't think there's that much of interest here. Yes, there was better food options, better buy-off, better payments to put up. Oh well. You know, I guess green falls into a bonus here. Actually, yellow did too, but they don't have the money to take advantage of any of these new cards, so we'll look at green and see if they want any of these. And for what it's worth from yellow's point of view, looking at them, their payoff, the most they could get is 12. That would be the 5-point difference. Actually, no, they could have replaced this field. Yeah, but they don't have the points for it. Okay, anyway. Green's looking, and none of these work for them. They've got too many points produced already. We had already discussed that. So red would have pulled some of these up. There's no question. They were better cards than some of the ones that they pushed forward. But so what? Let's look at the intelligence for green, though. What does that matter? Green would get perhaps a jump on black. And they've got spear and fishing rod. Fishing rod's an issue. Will there be 7 or more fish by the time green gets to go? I think green does not want intelligence either. I think they're going to hold their money, make use of the fire they have. We'll just keep going. Well, we see a failure to pay attention and calculate as much as possible in a game, and I hate doing that kind of calculation, there's no question. I feel like this game relies on it so much more than the original Power Grid. The original Power Grid, everything seemed kind of intuitive. Here, the calculation is, well, how much am I going to get for this? It's how much I'm going to get, not, wow, are those prices reasonable? Does that look okay? Can I do that? It's not by gut instinct anymore. It's hard numbers that you actually have to calculate to do this and to be successful. And in this case, what was the hard number you had to do? And what was the calculation? Well, it was counting to see how many of these damn mammoths were going to be left. This card was worth 8 to me if it produced, but it didn't produce heavily because the mammoths dropped down to 6 in time. Actually, they were already there, so this is kind of a stupid case because there were already, it was already the case that you could see there weren't enough mammoths. I was just miscounting the card. But still, that kind of awareness and seeing all that is much, much easier for me in the original Power Grid, where I've got a price balance, you know, to keep in mind. I've got my cash in hand. Here, these numbers are just harder for me because they're smaller and I actually have to go and count. I don't know why, but I found it much, much easier to play the original Power Grid and to be aware of what those prices were and what that's going to affect my pile of cash, as opposed to this where I don't have a pile of cash to buy. I just have to look, see how many there are, see it here, make that connection. That's harder for me because it's simpler maybe? I don't know. But anyway, some people were questioning, why do you consider this a game that has more calculation type aspects to it? I feel like it does. I feel like I'm constantly having to actually look and count in a way that I've never had to do in the regular Power Grid. In the regular Power Grid, those are just prices. They just, you know, this could just be how my brain is wired. I can do, you know, monetary math trivially, but I can't do counting very easily, especially when there's all these blocks on the board. There's not a simple, simple numerical representation of what there is. I actually have to physically count how many elephants there are there. Similar situation when I'm here with the fish. I didn't quite make that 8 or more, and the counting's kind of more complex here too. It's not all in one place. Now, I could, you know, it irritates me and it aggravates me and makes the game a little harder. I don't mind the game, by the way, but it's just an action I dislike comparatively. Maybe some people like counting better than, you know, doing quick money math in their head, the way that the original Power Grid works. I just find this a lot harder. I find the calculation aspect of this game much, much more difficult. And I'll definitely hit that on my review. Anyway, we had that here, but kind of the opposite. These mammoths, just because these cards are good, produced well. So one of the things is, you know, before that last turn, you can certainly make good choices. Hey, this is a good card. This is a good card. This card kind of sucks. It's not going to necessarily produce as well. Those choices you make early on, but last turn choice, harder to make. Now, in this case, I didn't have an option on this. I had something worse to get rid of. It's not like I was counting on that card working. This guy was actually counting on this thing being worth $8 bucks. If he had known it was worth $4, he would have gotten rid of it and would have paid for one of the better cards. There's no question there. But that's life. On to the last white player. And now here we come to blue, and he's got a kind of difficult situation. He knows he's not going to win. He's in behind. But now the question is, does he try to place ahead of other people? Does he try to do as best as he can, given that he thinks White's going to win? White only needs to get two things. White's going to get two. So I think the answer is yes. Or does he position himself for a possible White failure? What if the choice were a little harder? I don't know. These are the kind of thoughts that I put into my game. I don't know which way I'd go sitting there. You might just be sitting there saying, you know, I don't care. I want this to be over. I'm losing the game. And it's really not that interesting when you're losing it, right? If you're not involved in it anymore, and there does not feel to be any way to catch up, to surpass, to bone an opponent. So somebody grabs the lead, they're just going to run away with it, I think. Now, grabbing the lead doesn't mean being here on the marker. It means producing that food as well. You have to make a balanced choice here. If you stretched out and pushed yourself too far, you wouldn't have the resources to keep expanding, so you'd have to take a fallow turn or something, and that would probably hurt your efficiency overall. Well, we've played through everybody except for White, and the penalty of going last is becoming apparent. White had a lot of money, and they managed to surge not only to 13 but above it by 1. And with everybody else cluttering the board and trying to prevent White from maybe hitting that 13 or exceeding it or whatever, especially you know, somebody like Green or well, Red said, hey, I can make it to 14 if I just do one route. White's been left in a situation where if they wanted to buy 3 to put them up to 14, that'll cost them $6. Everything's filled, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they don't have it. 3, 9, 10, they're short. They can't put more than 2 pieces. And I can put those 2 pieces easily. Although there aren't many 1-point spaces even left. So I'd have to expand somewhere with a 2-point space, I think. But let's take a look. That would cost them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, $8, which they can easily afford. Get a buck back, but they only go forward 2, and Red wins the game. Kind of a come from behind victory, but there were a pile of people who had no chance. These guys back here knew they weren't going to make that 13, and they've been kind of languishing, especially Blue, but some of the others as well. For most of the game, they just did not get a start on things. Now, you could say, hey, you know, them's the breaks. You play a game like 18XX, and quite often someone will be in that lagging position. And not necessarily because they're playing poorly, just because the way things landed, the way other people moved things, they didn't get certain opportunities that maybe they should have gotten. For me, that's not a big deal, maybe because I'm pretty good at XX, and I usually don't end up being the guy in that position. But I can see some players being very disturbed by this. It's especially hard, even though we saw a come from behind victory, I think it's hard to really hurt someone. Here, they weren't going to make it even if everybody didn't capitalize against them. Their cash flow, the fact that they spent their money the turn before to push their position here, that was the decision that killed them. If they had instead done what Red did, essentially, and built up their productivity for this turn, they would have gotten a little bit more money, and, you know, they could have built 1 less piece last turn and 1 more this turn. They would have paid less food this turn for their clan. Just overall, they would have had a lot, you know, there were a lot of edges to not buying it right away. On the other hand, getting rid of your food, not having to deal with the bidding process, that seemed to make things cleaner. Well, it didn't. It was a mistake. You don't want to try to branch out and not do what you've been doing all game. Because there are almost always opportunities to get stuff. And what we saw was some of those opportunities didn't even show up. Red might have gotten one of those that would have given him a few more bucks. There's no question White should not have taken the strategy they took of, hey, I'm in the lead, let's just make sure I end this thing. I thought that would work. It doesn't. Alright, I'll be back with a review.